Since Hamas' barbaric attack on Israel on October 7th last year, many of our nation's top universities have abandoned their Jewish students. Instead of providing a place to learn, they have become hotbeds of anti-Semitism, anti-American hatred, and open support for terrorism. Here are some examples. At Princeton, students have waved the flag of terror groups like Hezbollah. UCLA, activists set up barricades across campus and blocked Jewish students from attending class. George Washington University, a pro-Hamas demonstrator walked around campus with a sign calling for a final solution against the Jewish people. Columbia University, students chanted, "We are Hamas," and "Long live Hamas." In recent weeks, pro-Hamas activists at Barnard College occupied an academic building, allegedly assaulted a school employee, and handed out flyers produced by the Hamas media office. These flyers glorified Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. That is Hamas' term for its kidnapping, rape, and murder of more than 1,200 Israelis. These are not isolated cases, and Mr. President, to many Americans and certainly many Tennesseans, it seems impossible that this would be happening right here. But according to Hillel International, there were more than 1,800 anti-Semitic incidences on college campuses during the 23-24 school year. Think about that, 1,800 anti-Semitic incidences. Now, the thing that is so upsetting about this is that that is an increase of more than 500% from the year before. This shows you the organization and the intensity of these events. What we do know is that Jewish students have faced harassment and intimidation on their university campuses, and we also know that the Biden administration sat on their hands and they chose to do nothing about this. Instead, they sided with the radical activists who turned our campuses into cesspools of hatred. Now, with President Trump back in the Oval Office, pro-Hamas students and the colleges that enable them are being put on notice. Recently, Secretary of State Rubio vowed to revoke visas and green cards for any foreign students who support terror groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. This is something that I have called for and supported, which is why I am so pleased to see this administration, the Trump administration, actually taking action. Now, what we do know is that ICE arrested a former Columbia University student who is from Syria, that is Mahmoud Khalil, and this was a ringleader for Columbia's anti-Israel encampment. As I said, a former student. At these demonstrations, pro-Hamas activists spat on Jewish students. They chanted, "F the Jews," and they held signs next to Jewish students claiming that they would be Hamas's next target. Think about this. If you're a 19-year-old Jewish college student and you are there on Columbia's campus and you have a protester holding a sign against your head saying you should be the next targets. In many ways, Khalil was the perfect leader for this anti-Semitic pro-terror movement. What we know is this: before he enrolled at Columbia University, he allegedly served as a political affairs officer for UNRWA. That is right, the UN Relief and Works Agency there in Gaza. This person was a political affairs officer for UNRWA. Now, this is the same UNRWA that we now know indoctrinated Palestinian children to hate the Jews, stored Hamas's weapons in its facilities in Gaza. They actually put ammunition and weapons in the schools, the UN schools there in Gaza. We know that they had people affiliated with Hamas on their payroll, and we know they provided support and aid to the terrorists. There is no reason why someone like this should be allowed in our country to support terrorism and to promote anti-Jewish bigotry. That's why Secretary Rubio is intending to deport Khalil, which this administration has the full authority to do under our federal immigration laws. And under this administration, I have no doubt we are going to see many more deportations. As we work to deport Hamas affiliates, my bipartisan No Immigration Benefits for Hamas Terrorist Act would block any migrant tied to Hamas from entering our country. And my No Flight for Terrorists Act would put anyone on the no-fly list if they have called for violence against the Jewish people or pledged allegiance to a foreign terrorist organization. At the same time, President Trump is vowing to pull federal funding from schools that fail to protect Jewish students from discrimination. Just on Friday, his administration canceled $400 million in grants and contracts with Columbia University. That is a good start to accountability. Right after October 7th, I joined Senator Tim Scott in introducing the Stop Anti-Semitism on College Campuses Act. This legislation would rescind federal funding for any university in this country that authorizes, funds, or facilitates events that promote violent anti-Semitism. With such widespread failure from our nation's colleges and universities to protect Jewish students, there are billions of dollars on the line. One thing should be clear. With President Trump back in the Oval Office and Republicans in the majority, pro-Hamas activists and colleges are going to face accountability. And if you are visiting our great nation and supporting terrorism, please know this: you will be deported.